Hi everyone, in this Framer tutorial we're gonna create these great scroll variant animations for the titles of the sections. You can also find the Framer file link in the description below if you like to check and remix. So let's get started. First I'm gonna create the title component. I'll start with creating a frame and name it single title. And then I'm gonna make its width 247 and its height is going to be 56 pixels. Then I'm gonna change its fill with a gradient preset, the last one. And I'm gonna make its corners 100% rounded. Next I'm gonna create the text element that I need in the title component. So I'm gonna type title and make its width 204. Then I will align it to the right of the component, and I'm gonna make its style title text from the text styles. I know its horizontal alignment looks off a little now, but after creating the complete titles component, it is going to look much better. Now we are ready to turn our single title element to a component. And in the component screen, I'm gonna select the text and click in the content under the text section at the right panel. I'm gonna hover over create variable and select plain text to assign its value to a variable. Now we can create the inactive variant for our title component, right? So I'm gonna rename the second variant inactive and I'm gonna drop its opacity to 0.2. Going back to home screen, I'm gonna create a new frame in the titles wrap stack. I'm gonna name it titles. It is going to be holding our titles component later. And I'm gonna make its position absolute, top and left spacing 24. I'm gonna remove its other pins. I'll make its both width and height 526. And then I'm gonna remove its fill. Before starting to create our titles component, I'll first mark the horizontal and vertical center of the titles frame with two guides. And then I'm going to drag the single title component to the titles frame. I'm gonna position to the right of the origin, vertically centering it. To be able to duplicate and transform the single title, I need to make sure that its rotation happens around the origin that I need. Since I need to rotate it around the center of the titles frame, I need to add an origin property to it. So I'm gonna click the plus next to transforms on the right panel and select origin. And I'm gonna make its X value 0. Now we can test if it's being rotated around the origin that we need. As I see it, it works. Now I can duplicate the title component and start creating the other titles by rotating it 72 degrees right. I'm gonna enter 72 for the rotation value, and I'll keep duplicating the title component and adding 72 to its rotation value right, until I have 5 titles in total. Now I can select my titles frame and turn it into a component, right? Now we need to assign each title to a separate variable, right? So after selecting the first title component, I'm gonna click the variable under the component properties. After clicking the first title component, I'm gonna click the title and create variable and rename the variable title1, also its default value to title1. I'm gonna repeat the process for every title. Variable title2, and default value is also going to be title2. I will also select other titles except the current one and change their variants to inactive. Now we can start creating other variants for our titles component, right? So after selecting the first variant, I'm gonna click the plus variant button, and while the new variant is selected under styles at right panel, I'm gonna enter -72 for its rotate value, and that is going to make title2 the current one. Then we need to change the active and inactive states of the titles, right? So I'm gonna make title to active and all the other ones inactive. I'm gonna continue this process, creating a new variant, subtracting 72 from its rotation value, switching the active title, also making the other ones inactive, of course. We are ready to create our section component, right? So after going back to home screen, I'm gonna create a new frame and I will drag it to my desktop stack and I'm gonna place it at the bottom and I will make its width filled and height 600 pixels. And I will remove its fill. Of course, I'm gonna rename it as a section. To create the stack that's going to hold the text, I'm gonna create a new frame in the section and name it text wrap, remove its fill and create a text element inside of it. And I'm going to change its style to body. Then I'm going to paste the content for the first section that I've created with ChatGPT. Then I will select text wrap and start to change its properties. I'm gonna make its width 330 and its height is going to be fit content. Under layout, its distribute is going to be start. Then I will select the text inside of it and make its width filled. And of course, I'm gonna need just one line break between the paragraphs. Next, I will select section frame and pressing the plus next to layout at the right panel, I'm gonna turn it into a stack and make it distribute and to align text to right, and I'm gonna make its right padding 100 pixels. Now we can turn our section stack into a component, right? And in the component screen, I'm gonna select the text content and click in the content labeled and hovering over create variable, I'm gonna select formatted text to assign the content to a variable. Of course, if two paragraphs get merged, I'm gonna add a line break again. Before duplicating the section component and replacing the content for each section, first I will add a scroll section to the first one for icons at the titles wrap to be animated in the way we need. So after coming back to home screen, I'll select the section component and click the plus button next to scroll section at the right panel. And I'm going to enter just E for empathize as the scroll section name. Then since I set the scroll transform settings for both icons under titles wrap stack, I'm gonna select the right arrow of icon and after clicking transform box next to scroll under the effects, I'm gonna click the section drop down. I'm gonna click the box next to section in the pop-up and select the scroll section E I've just defined. Next, we need to define the same scroll section as trigger for the down icons wrap, right? So in the component section, I'm gonna just click the box next to scroll section and again select section E. Now we can test to see if the icon animations work the way we need. So as I scroll through the first section, down icons disappear and right arrow icon appears. Now we can start copying the section component and replacing its content, right? So I will duplicate it and under the section component settings, I'm gonna click edit content and paste the text for defined step. And I will continue doing the same thing for other sections. Before starting animating the titles component, I'll enter the actual titles. Title 1 being empathize, title 2 being define, and so on. We also need to define scroll section for each section component to be able to switch variants and animate our titles component, right? Since we entered E for the first section, I'm going to replace scroll section values specific to each section. So second scroll section ID is going to be D for define, third one is going to be I for ideate, and so on. Now we can create scroll variant effect to animate the titles component. So I will select it, click the effects at the right sidebar, and I'm going to select a scroll variant option from the drop down. Then I will change trigger to section in view and also change report to bottom. And since the first title is already active, I'm going to select D for the second section. And since for defined step, the titles components variant needs to be variant 2, I'm gonna select it from the drop down and I'm gonna continue adding sections for other variants. We can test our animation. As you see, rotation animation works perfectly, but the change to next variant happens too quickly. By the time a section's content is in the view, the active title already gets switched to the next one, even though we set the viewport to bottom, which means we need the variant change to happen while the next section is at the bottom of the viewport. We might increase the height of each section, but that would also increase the area to be scrolled. So we're going to create a separate frame, place at the bottom of each section, and we're gonna use it as trigger. That way the transition to the next variant is gonna happen until we see the trigger frame at the bottom. So I will create a new frame on the page, name it trigger, make its position absolute, make its width something that we can comfortably select, like 200, and its height is going to be 300. In my tests, I realized half of the section height works best, at least in this case, and I'm gonna align it to the bottom of the first section, and while it is selected, I'll remove its fill, click scroll section at the right panel, and enter 1 as scroll section. Then I will duplicate it for each section and change its scroll section ID. Now we can define those frames as triggers in scroll variant effect for the titles component, right? So I'm gonna change the sections for each variant to the scroll section frame IDs that we've just created. 2 for variant 2, 3 for variant 3, and so on. So let's test it. As you see, the variant changes work much better this way. Matching the content in the report. I need to edit the last variant's height a little bit to center the text actually. But yeah, it works perfectly. Now we can create our second animation by using some single title transforms, like flip and rotate, by editing the titles component variants. So I'll go to the titles component screen and duplicate the variant 2 by dragging to top while holding Shift and Alt, and rename the clone V22. To create the animation we want, we need to rotate each title component counterclockwise and align them with the active title. Since we need this rotation to be counterclockwise for variant 2, I will select all the inactive titles, and the counterclockwise rotation value for the titles to be aligned with the active one is -288. I manually rotated one of them and see the angle, so to keep the tutorials shorter, I will select all of them and enter the value for each variant. Since we want all other titles to be hidden behind the active one first, which we've done actually, and then to be visible again, we need a transition from the closed titles to the open one. So I'm gonna drag an interaction from closed variant to the open one, and as trigger I'm gonna select appear and enter just 0.2 for the delay. I'm going back to home screen. I'm gonna test the animation, and as you see, when I move to the define section, the animation works perfectly. So I will edit all the variants same way to copy the animation to them. Starting from variant 3, I will clone it. Then I'm going to select all the inactive titles, and to align them with the active one, rotating them counterclockwise, I'm gonna enter the value I need, which is -216, and then I'm going to drag an interaction. Trigger is gonna be appear, and delay is gonna be 0.2 seconds again. And I'll repeat the process for every variant. Now that we've completed the edits for all the variants, we can test the animation. It works perfectly, but we can make it even better by creating an extra variant for also the first one, making the emphasize title active when we scroll to its section. So I'm gonna go back to the titles component screen, and first I'm gonna create some space to be able to comfortably create a clone of the first variant by dragging all other variants to the right. Then I will duplicate variant 1, name it v11, and I will duplicate the 11 and name it 12. Now we can align all the titles in variant 11 by entering 0 for the inactive one's rotation value, and again, as we did for other variants, we can drag an interaction to its second variation, and selecting appear as trigger and 0.2 seconds for delay, we can define the same animation. Also, as we don't want the first title to be active until we scroll to its content section, I will make the first title inactive in the first variant. Of course, it will affect the active title also in the 2 copies of the first variant, so I'm gonna make them active again. And going back to home screen, we're gonna need to also edit the scroll variant settings. But unfortunately, since the scroll variant change for the first variant needs to be at the very top, we're gonna need to edit all scroll variant section settings. Luckily, we can do it really quickly under the scroll variant settings. So I will edit section 2 to be 1, and its variant is going to be v11, and 2 for variant 2, and so on. Of course, I'm gonna need to add an extra section to be able to define the 5th one. Now we can test it. As I see it, it works perfectly. Actually, I tried to add a flip effect to titles and it looked even better, so let's add it. After going to titles component screen, I'll select all the titles in variant 11 at the left panel, and under transforms at the right panel, I'm gonna click 3D and enter 270 or X value. I'll repeat it for the titles in the first variant of each pair. It. As you see, it works perfectly. Hope you liked the tutorial. Be sure to subscribe, turn the notifications on, and check my other tutorials. See you in the next one.